Suffering. It's the one thing everyone avoids, yet it's often the very doorway through which the soul awakens. Most people see pain as punishment, as something wrong, something to be fixed or escaped. But what if suffering isn't a mistake? What if, in the great architecture of the soul, pain is designed with purpose? Think back to the times in your life when everything fell apart, not just bad days, but the moments that shattered your identity. The heartbreak, the loss, the betrayal, the emptiness. Those are not random. Those are sacred ruptures, engineered by the soul to force a deeper truth into your awareness. Ancient traditions didn't demonize suffering, they honored it. In mystery schools, initiates were put through intentional pain and ego death rituals, not to torture them, but to strip away illusion. Because it's in the collapse of the false self that the true self emerges. So if you're in pain, you're not broken, you're being cracked open. This is the first step of real awakening, and most people miss it because they're too busy trying to numb the pain instead of listening to what it's trying to say. In today's world, suffering is seen as a glitch, something that shouldn't exist in a high-vibration reality. But this mindset creates more disconnection. When we label pain as wrong, we disconnect from one of the most powerful forces for transformation. Think of suffering not as a punishment, but as pressure. Just as diamonds are formed under extreme pressure, your soul uses suffering to crystallize clarity and authenticity. The reason some awaken through suffering is because it bypasses the surface mind. No affirmation or positive thinking can reach the depths that raw emotion does. It breaks the mental loops. It burns illusions. It brings you face to face with what you were avoiding and forces you to feel, to process, to release. But here's the secret. It's not the suffering itself that awakens you. It's your willingness to stay present with it, to sit with the discomfort, to observe it without labeling it good or bad. That presence turns pain into fuel. That awareness transforms the wound into wisdom. In truth, many spiritual breakthroughs don't come from joy or peace. They're born from despair. Because only in darkness do we begin to seek the real light, not the fake glow of spiritual bypassing. We live in a culture obsessed with comfort and control. Any discomfort is labeled as a problem, but the soul doesn't evolve through comfort. It evolves through contrast, through loss, through uncertainty, through the dismantling of who we thought we were. These are not detours on the path, they are the path. Have you ever noticed how after a breakdown something deeper emerges? A shift in how you see yourself, or others, or the world? That's not a coincidence. It's the death of the false identity making room for the birth of something real. The ego crumbles so that the soul can breathe. The most transformative moments in life don't come from chasing happiness. They come from surrender. True healing doesn't happen when we fix things. It happens when we allow what is without running from it, because in that stillness, truth arises, and truth is what sets you free. So the question isn't, how do I stop suffering, but what is this suffering trying to teach me? That shift in perception changes everything. Pain becomes teacher, not tormentor. You stop resisting and start listening, and in that listening, the seeds of awakening are planted. If this awakens something in you, subscribe now and hit the bell. Your journey is just beginning. Suffering is not just emotional chaos, it's spiritual precision. Every sharp moment, every tear, every ache is a sacred disruptor of unconsciousness. And sometimes, the deeper the pain, the greater the awakening that follows. This is why certain souls seem to break down completely before their light breaks through. The ego must shatter before the soul can shine. When everything familiar falls apart, you're left with only what's real. Illusions no longer satisfy. Numbness no longer protects. This is when the search begins, not for escape, but for essence. You stop asking, how do I get out of this? And start asking, what is being born in me right now? This is sacred alchemy in action. Suffering breaks you down, but the breakdown is preparation for breakthrough. It's the demolition phase before reconstruction. The more you resist it, the longer it takes. But when you lean in, when you trust the burning, you discover a depth in yourself that comfort could never offer. Your pain is not a punishment. It's an invitation, an initiation into the deeper realms of who you truly are. And those who answer this call don't just heal, they transform. They rise from ashes not as who they were, but as who they've always been underneath the noise. When we stop fighting pain and start honoring it, we access a deeper intelligence. Pain is feedback. It shows where alignment is lost, where truth is ignored, where parts of us still live in shadow. This is why suffering can feel like a mirror. It reflects not what's wrong with the world, but what's unresolved within. But most people are taught to fear pain, to numb it, escape it, spiritualize it away. They treat pain like a flaw in the system, but pain is the message. It's the body's way of whispering, the soul's way of knocking. Ignore it long enough, and the whisper becomes a scream. Those on the spiritual path often encounter the dark night of the soul. This is not a metaphor. It's an energetic collapse where all illusions fall away and only raw truth remains. It's terrifying because it feels like death. But what dies is not the self. It's the false identity, the mask we've worn to survive. In this darkness, the ego can no longer negotiate. The mind can no longer control. And in that surrender, something eternal awakens. It is in this depth that we realize suffering was never the enemy. It was the guide. The silent teacher leading us inward, to the center where real freedom lives. Most people want awakening without the fire. They want transformation, but not the burning away. They chase light without realizing it only comes through facing the darkness. But spiritual growth is not an aesthetic. It's a dismantling. It strips you of all that is not real so that what's eternal can be revealed. And here's the hidden irony. The very suffering we run from is often the portal we've been asking for. The breakdown you fear may be the doorway to the freedom you've been begging the universe to deliver. That means your pain is not just pain. It's sacred construction, divine chaos that reorganizes everything to align with truth. This is why healing is never linear. It's spiral. It revisits old wounds not to punish you, but to reveal what still needs your presence. Each loop deeper brings you closer to the root. And once you touch that root, once you bring consciousness to what was unconscious, alchemy begins. You start seeing the patterns that created your pain. You start seeing how your reactions fed the cycle. And most of all, you begin to reclaim your power. Because when you stop blaming the external, you find your true authority within. And from that place, you become the conscious creator of your experience. Most people resist suffering because they believe it means something is wrong. But in the language of the soul, suffering often signals that something deep is finally being made right. It's like spiritual surgery. The old identities, beliefs, and illusions are being cut away, even if it feels painful. And just like physical healing, the pain isn't the problem. It's part of the process. In fact, the presence of suffering often means that your system is finally processing a truth it once denied. The discomfort is not dysfunction, it's growth. When you start seeing pain as a messenger instead of a mistake, everything changes. You become willing to sit with it, breathe through it, and listen. That's when healing begins, not from force, but from presence. And when you stop trying to escape the fire, you discover that fire is what purifies the gold inside you. The greatest illusion is that we need to avoid pain in order to grow. But pain isn't the opposite of progress, it's the engine of it. Every moment you thought was breaking you was actually shaping you. The soul doesn't evolve in perfect conditions. It awakens in the storm, in the silence that follows the scream, in the surrender after the struggle. And that's the secret most never learn. Suffering isn't personal punishment, it's sacred preparation. The universe isn't testing you to see if you'll survive. It's revealing who you really are underneath what you thought you had to be. When you stop resisting the pain, you discover the power it was hiding. And through that power, the awakening begins, not just of your mind, but of your entire being. That's when desire, destiny, and divinity finally align. What if the pain you've been avoiding is actually the path to everything you've been seeking?